Okay, I hope we will be back soon. Well, thank you for, first off, for inviting us to be here today as a practitioner talking from the work field in where we develop learning solutions, mainly for frontline workers. So my name is Milan, my colleague is Jeffrey. I mostly do business development, but I'm also one of the founders. We develop modern learning solutions for basically practical training, practical safety solutions. I have a ton of slides. I'll try to go as fast as possible and stay within time. I hope you guys will be entertained and learn something about how we do it and what we do. There's a bunch of animations apparently in this presentation that I'm not sure about where they are, so sometimes my apologies for some of the dynamic stuff. What do we do? Jeffrey already talked about this. We make learning solutions, digital learning solutions, mainly for technical industries, energy, heavy industry, high-risk industries, for safety, operations, maintenance. But mostly we want to make an impact on the energy transition and sustainability because there's a great shift going on with older workers in industry aging usually within about 10 years of their retirement, and young people getting into the industry fairly untrained, fairly inexperienced, and a huge knowledge gap in between these groups. Digital learning is part of the solution to train them as efficiently and effectively as possible. We have to, because we're all hopefully terrified of climate change and what that happens, so we need to make the energy transition happen, and we need to reskill the people and skill the people that will actually hands-on build that, because dreaming up robots that will do all these kind of solutions, it's not going to happen. But in the practical sense, we do a lot of work for technical industries. We do that in several fields. Digital training, so wind-related, hydrogen-related, safety-related, all these kind of subtopics in the energy transition. This is some examples of blended learning solutions or e-learning solutions. When you go in depth, it's assessments, it's compliance, it's onboarding training, it's technical information, providing people with curated, efficient, and clear information is a challenge for a lot of organizations, even the multinationals, and this is where we support them with any kind of format. Can be visual, question related, or videos. We do solutions like life-saving rules, rules that are very short and clear, coming from the oil and gas industry, but having been applied in a lot of chemical sectors as well, technical sectors, how to stay safe. Easy rules, what not to do in order to save your life. One of the projects we did in the past, virtual reality stuff. We do virtual maintenance training. When an installation, a technical installation is very large, expensive, and dangerous, it is hard to train there physically. So capacity constraints, but also cost constraints make it that the training is usually on the job. This is challenging if you have a limited amount of space and a limited amount of trainers, which is the case throughout most industries. We'll be going a little bit more in depth about generator training. Some of the other stuff is new fuels. We're transitioning into a new fuel economy, hopefully faster than slower, and getting people who are users of these energies, safely working with them in a very efficient way. Can better be done with game-based learning than with traditional ways of on-the-job training or 100-page PDFs or whatever the industry is now providing. And we also do virtual site visits, so making sure that people get to know technical installations and industries before they're even made. Reducing emissions and costs while we're doing that. Yes, sometimes we touch upon oil and gas, all these nasty industries that we don't really love, but they're part of the transition, unfortunately. Our focus is safety training, lifelong learning, up and reskilling. This is why my questions were about the target audience, and how the target audience of primary and secondary education usually is not what we're focused on. Secondary education to some extent, but mostly professional skills, professional training. There's a bit of a gray zone when you're 16-year-olds and you're learning to work on a specific installation. You do that in school, but it's similar for somebody who's in an industrial sector. And like I said, mainly for the energy transition. Our aim is there to support technical industry, developing a skilled workforce, keeping those skills up to a level. A lot of times it's certificate based. They need to do a lot of refreshers. Refreshers are usually quite cumbersome and traditionally similar to what we're doing here. An old man, bald, standing in front of a screen, talking to a group, very inefficient learning. But in this context, apparently that's what we do. So active safety is the first solution that we're going to talk about. It's a safety solution, and we're going to take you through some of the background. It's a product we made from different projects and questions that are in the industry. Give you some context. There's a lot of incidents happening worldwide, 300 million annually. ILO numbers, each day worldwide, 6,000 people die. A lot of different causes. Hazardous substances kill 400,000 annually. Of course, it's different in Western world as opposed to some other parts of the world, but it's horrible what's happening, and can be solved in a multitude of ways. When we look at it more in depth, in Europe, the incident rate is mostly with younger workers and the end of career workers. And if we focus on the Netherlands, it's about 200,000 work incidents every year, where people have to go to get some medical aid. 40% of this is caused by lack of alertness and safety awareness. And creating awareness and refreshing those skills is just not possible in the way they're approaching it now. It's very much from a compliance standpoint, so they have to do it. You have to get to a safety meeting, such as this, where you're told what might happen, gory pictures, what not to do, all these kind of things. It's a very efficient way, because we believe training is broken, because everyone knows it's a forgetting curve. You just lose a lot of information. It's inefficient, but it's still a traditional way of doing it. It's highly dependent on the skill of who's in front of the group, what kind of state the group is in. But we found that there's solutions how to do that. Measurements not even done for most of that. Different reasons because of that, work pressure and all these kind of excuses how not to do it. It's a challenge for companies, like I mentioned, to get the right talent. And our goals are to make safety training and compliance easy and fun. I can now say fun. Which is just simplification when we talk to a specific audience. If the audience is a director of a chemical plant or a technical firm, fun is an easier thing to say than game-based learning. We offer a lot of relevant just-in-time learning. We know that that is the transition that we're going towards, putting information in the pocket or in any kind of format with that worker, because if you have a training at one point and then 6 months, 12 months later, you're in front of that technical installation, having to have that safety procedure top of mind, you don't have that. You need to make that easy accessible. So there are different tools how to develop that, and we aim to increase safety awareness. So some of the theory behind that is, what we do is we look at what kind of compliance issues are there, how can we approach this, who is our target audience, what kind of moment will they utilize this information, and how are they receptive to that information, also what is previous knowledge that they're already having. When we're looking at this solution, we dug into it quite deeply with the help of Jeffrey and some other educational scientists, trying to figure out how can we model the learning process based on educational science, game-based learning, game techniques, and translate that into solutions that kind of fit with the target audience. Of course, in many iterations. But one of the things that Jeffrey dug into was creating some kind of model framework, and maybe you can talk a little bit about how this came to be, Jeffrey.
Yeah. Yeah, as Milan said, I looked into the safety. I started learning from an internship while doing innovation in education. I think is the best English translation master's program. And that's, well, how can we make safety related? How can we reduce all those incidents or all the stats Milan just went over? That's the challenge. How do we make people work safer end of the day? Get them home safe, that's the goal. Educational science doesn't really have the answer to that immediately, as you might suspect. I needed to go into the field of safety research, which is a bit weird. I never dug that deep before, I think. I ended up in fighter jet training, a lot of aviation training. That's, well, see a bit of familiar, or at least nodding. That's how deep situational awareness went. It's in medical care, it's in the military defense trainings, those kind of research fields. I linked that to psychology and then education. That's sort of the mix that I came up with, or that the theory also supported. It all starts, or let me start with the outcome. We want a reduction of incidents. Well, work back from there. Where do we start? The situational awareness. So if people are not aware, the likelihood of an incident or accident happening is simply larger. It's that simple, or it sounds that simple. In between, a lot of stuff happens. You can influence all those choices you make. Every choice you make is a psychological choice for yourself. Do you have your helmet? Do you wear it or not? Yeah, what goes into that choice is immense. If people have a psychology background, you're a bit in that field, I think. You might know a bunch of theories that sort of explain or try to explain why do you put the helmet on or why don't you. Maybe your neighbor had an accident last year and didn't have his helmet on, maybe then you do. If you didn't have that neighbor, you might not. It's immense. From there, we start with situational awareness, and if people perceive something, so they see that this chair might have a broken leg at one side, then they can comprehend that might be dangerous. So you project, if I sit on it, I might fall over. Very simple explanation, but if I don't even see it, or I'm not used to chairs having no legs, or maybe I always sit on a solid bench that doesn't have separate chairs, then I'm not aware of the danger that might happen. It's those kind of small steps. I'll go over the next one a bit more, I think. Then we try to impact. So that's the theory that's below our active safety training. I call it the active safety model, but it's my work, so there's no copyright or anything on there. But we want to impact decision making, and simply if people are exposed, sort of exposure therapy, or if they know more, if they've seen more, if they've received more examples, talked over more examples, heard examples from people that had accidents or were in incidents, then they simply can project better what might happen. So the more you know, the better your decision making will be. That will impact, hopefully, that's the psychology of decision making is a big black box there for a large part. But if we have more compliant behavior, so simply follow the rules that are stated for your safety. Proactive safety behavior, so guard for your colleagues to work safe. If you see unsafe, that's pro-social. If you see a colleague being unsafe, tell them, hey, please wear your helmet, because we're all in this together. And proactive, if you think the safety protocol is not safe enough, or you experience I might still be in danger even though I am compliant, then speak up. And it sounds very simple, say if it's unsafe and follow the rules, but it's not that easy in practice. Because if you're the young guy on the job, and you have all the 50, 60-year-olds, the veterans in whatever fields you come into, and they don't wear the helmet because like, it's fine. Did this for 20 years, never had an accident, it's fine.
Just fix it quickly.
Just fix it, just go in there, chop chop, 5 o'clock, we're out of here, so get it done, then I might not wear the helmet. And that kind of behavior, we want to have an impact, influence that behavior. We're also very aware that from the office job we hold, we can't influence everything on the construction side or in the medical facility or in a chemical plant.
Yeah, and neither can any kind of technical solution or game-based solution, right? There's so much going on, but this can add to that to a large extent.
So this is what is below this. People have questions about this part, or so far at least.
We can dig in a little bit later. Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
More
Yeah,
questions.
of course.
The context mainly in the industry, like construction side, right? But is it also applicable to some safety situation, like in the airplane, instead of this?
The situational awareness part and
So-
getting to safer behavior, what we call reduction of incidents, but that goes for anything. If it's in a chemical plant, it's not industry related, this research. So it can be in cybersecurity. You need to adapt all the everything you talk about because it's a very different field. But you could apply having more knowledge about how unsafe situations in security might happen, being physical if there's a fence or if there's a firewall in the digital world. It works the same way. Speaking up if it's not there, following the rules or the protocols that are there, talking to colleagues. It all leads, whatever the field, to more safety. So it can be applied broader than what we use it for currently. Yeah, we also aim to do that, but yeah, cybersecurity is a bit of for us, a very niche and expertise field for a reason.
For us, the low-hanging fruit was basically the basic safety, which has in the Netherlands and somewhat in Germany and in Belgium. It's called VCA. It's a certificate that 2+ million people have. It shows it teaches you about safety in the broadest possible terms. It's a certificate that is valued, or it's valid for 10 years. But we all know what we learned 10 years ago or 5 years ago. We don't have present in that moment. So there are some refreshing moments, safety talks, or moments that they talk in industry, and it quite differs. So you mentioned construction just a minute ago. If you look at construction, this is a very challenging field. A lot of people work in this, but a lot of cost cutting, quick fixes are applied. If you go in looking at different industries, the higher the risk profile of an industry, the more investment is made in the training and equipping of the workforce in making sure that there's no incident happening, no accidents. And we're looking more at these high-risk industries where the risk profile and the awareness of the impact of an incident are much larger. If an incident happens on a construction site, nobody usually knows. If an incident happens in a chemical park, this might cause a really impactful consequence for the organization and organizations around, negative publicity and sometimes even deaths and all kinds of horrible things. But we're mainly focused initially at these high-risk industries because there is a real need to support and there's a real belief that this will have impact. So yeah, we try to make safety training easy and fun based on that model, but then you need to translate it into different things, and this is where some of the animations surprised me a little bit. We use game-based learning basically for different things. So motivational aspects, rewarding aspects, try to increase participation, which is always a challenge. And we use immersion and challenges and narrative to support what we're doing. And we believe it helps with retention. There's several different things that we work with, situation awareness and these psychological theories. We translate into somewhat experiential aspects, extended reality, so virtual and augmented reality solutions, that focus on the experience, the interaction, and the practice. And the more you take people into these experiential situations, experiencing an incident, for instance, and I'll show some more later on, it touches you much more like you were actually there. So I can show you an image of this accident happened, somebody was hurt, or I can have you experience that you are hurt in a certain situation that does something different for memory and retention of that knowledge. And so we build upon those theories. A lot of things are based on microlearning. Making it small, making it accessible, few minutes will lower the barrier to entry of utilizing a learning solution much more than the awesome model behind it. We use the 4CID model and we've looked at different theories, but sometimes I think theory over, sometimes theory is nice, but it's hard to translate into a solution. But I'm really looking forward to connecting with you guys and learning from your ideas in your field what ideas you have on how to apply that. We do that often into a microlearning solution, so it's refreshing or binging. It helps with the spaced repetition. It can be applied just in time, and we make everything really visual, and even adding all kinds of audio-visual solutions to it, because a lot of the target audience has lower literacy skills or is from another country, and then if I teach you guys about safety and you're a non-native English speaker, it's not going to have the same impact as if I do it in your own native language in a context that's relevant for you. And so from all these ideas we created Active Safety, which is like a game-based safety training solution. Yeah, it's, like I said, it's based on how to make learning gamified. It uses a lot of micro-learning. Some of these slides are a bit on the marketing side of things, so excuse me for that. And it has a bunch of XR components. We can talk about it later on, but I would rather just show some things. I think there's some sound in it. So it's 200 plus activities, it's basic safety, it has 17 topics. Here are some of the augmented reality interactions which you can play on the work areas. It has a lot of these interactive elements which allow you to get points, feel rewarded. You have different reward systems for different types of learners that enjoy different things. You can do progress, leveling up, all kinds of different things. We try to make safety culture measurable, which is really important to organizations because that ties into insurance aspects, liability aspects, compliance aspects. And we try to make that really small. Here you see campaigns, which are basically the topics that we mentioned. But there's about a dozen topics, 17 topics, and then a dozen or so learning activities within that. And with that app-based solution, you can just, with a few minutes a day or a week even, refresh much more efficiently, apply that spaced repetition, and make it convenient for whoever in your organization or in your project needs to be refreshed on a topic. This sometimes is in a project when 6 months or 12 months they do a cleanup in an industrial site, or they build an industrial site, and getting everybody on board is a really challenging aspect. We support their activation, so refreshing that knowledge and creating that situational awareness is a big part of it. And people need to stay motivated, and that's where we use a lot of game-based solutions or visual learning solutions. Sometimes that's as simple as a multiple choice question, or sometimes it's something a bit more advanced. I think this is something you've seen already. Start. So on the right you see an augmented reality solution where basically you get a certain work context and then you are challenged with getting the right personal protective equipment for that job. If you do it right, the guy does a really funny dance. I have several dances in it. If not, he unfortunately dies. In a funny way. Okay, in a funny way. Yeah, so I think we've seen some of that, and in conjunction we visualize virtual incidents, and I can show some. We brought some VR headsets to show you some of the stuff that we do. This is the virtual experience where you experience the day in the life of an industrial worker as if you were there. One of your buddies gets injured, and after you experience the incident, he is doing some grinding, and then explosion happens, and this is another situation where there's a chemical spill. After that happens, that gives you some kind of, wow, something happened. And then as a detective, you're searching for some of the causes that led up to this situation. This is all then resulting in an endpoint where it helps organizations and these workers talk about their safety culture in relation to these kind of contexts. So yes, we use VR, but it does not mean that you shouldn't have the discussion with your team. It's all about facilitating a discussion about safety and doing that with game-based solutions. So that is one of the projects that I'm presenting. Something different is for our German hosts, Enercon generator maintenance. One of the largest wind turbine manufacturers in the world is Enercon. These are the guys we're talking about in the energy transition, so there's a lot of maintenance that's required on these wind turbines. This is done annually, but you've often seen a wind park and then the wind turbines aren't spinning. That's to a multitude of causes. Of course, we want to generate as much green energy as possible, and to have the right people available with the right skill set so they can do the actual maintenance job is where we support Enercon in training solutions that are a combination of different game-based learning elements. Yeah, it's highly specialized maintenance work, generator maintenance, which is one of the core components in this system. It has limited training facilities, so there's some challenges to this, and travel time and cost are real concerns here. To give you a bit more insight, this is the inside of a turbine or a tower. So on top is the nacelle, the machine chamber with the turbine in it, which generates the electricity. And here you see part of the generator. Big electrical system stator, I think, is what we're seeing here right now. So this is packaged copper with all kinds of coating, and this gets dirty, kind of like the spots that you see on there. In order to clean that up, it's kind of like, in order to clean that up, you have different solutions. You can use pieces of cloth, you can use special sprays, but you can also use dry ice, which is kind of like medium blasting. Sometimes they use it on cars as well. You get the grease off. But the challenge is this coating is kind of fragile. So if you have a blasting medium and you blast this and you remove the coating, you damage the generator, which is a part that's about $500,000. And if you have to take it out and replace it, that's usually about $1.5 million type of replacement job. So very delicate work. And there's only a small subset of these workers that can do that. You have to understand that for an organization like Enercon, who's worldwide, they have training facilities worldwide, but the expertise that's here in Northwestern Europe isn't really easily available in Vietnam or in Canada. And in order to resolve that, we built this training solution that allows people to experience the training without damaging this equipment with a virtual solution. But also to standardize that training, because it's highly dependent on the generator trainer, the expert that's available here in the Netherlands actually, which is one of the main training locations. So in this project we built a blended learning approach, which is based on experiential learning and station rotation model. Jeffrey can say a few things about this, maybe?
Yes, I can, yeah. Yeah, maybe some of you are...
5 more minutes? Okay, we're gonna
Yeah.
go real fast.
The ones that work on game-based learning will know a station rotation. It's basically a blended learning approach where you, we chose for this one, as Milan mentioned, the expertise is there. The expert who has been doing this for 10, 15 years, who is the trainer now, is there. You don't want to take him out because it's hurting his feelings, but it's also inconvenient because then you have it in a digital package and then who's going to answer the questions? The digital package, not necessarily. So you want to use the teacher, which is one of the stations, but he doesn't need to say everything or tell everything face to face to a group of people. Some information is better transferred if you just read it or take it from a video, which is the online instruction, which is e-learning, most common known form of that, or an online course that has been pre-recorded, stuff like that. Then the teacher is available for questions, some FAQs of this specific program, so set times that the teacher is available, because time zones difference in Canada, Vietnam, those are Korea, I think even, are actual locations that the people train in, and the teacher is, in this case, in the Netherlands, which does not have the same time zone. And then you have collaborative activities, that's where the VR training comes in. So they do the actual procedural training. You don't get the feel for the actual machine, because in virtual worlds you can't necessarily completely replicate that. We're pretty close, if I say so myself, or our developers got pretty close, we didn't do that. So they're better prepared for the first time that they go up in a windmill. It's incredibly dark there, it's incredibly, there's a lot of noise, there's not a lot of space, so the first time you're going there, it's going to be a trial and error anyway, if you're pre-trained or not. And they do that in multiplayer, so people in Canada can play with people in Canada, and the trainer can be the assessor, so you can just fly in, look at what the guys or gals are doing in VR.
Flying virtually.
Yeah, flying virtually, yeah. So they remove part of their carbon footprint, which for a company that builds wind turbines is a good thing. And you keep the experience of the teacher, and you also keep him involved in the program and have him use his time, because just taking the experience, putting it in something, that's not the way you want to, you still want to use him, or not that he's an asset, but he is an asset. You need him for the training to be successful.
You want to maximize his impact, and what they've been doing in a lot of contexts is actually flying people all across the world for the specific training, which is completely, another world that hardly is done anymore. So some of the methods that Jeffrey already discussed, and that results into a pretty intense program, which was requested by the client in this, where you have a 3-day program that allows them to spend dedicated time on different aspects. So the online learning, classroom sessions, and different tutorial scenes in order to transition them step by step into this new way of training. Because a lot of times we're challenged with organizations that have a very traditional way of approaching their training solutions, and transitioning them into a digital learning approach takes change management. You have to get the hearts and the minds of the people, their whole process has to change. This is often involved in this, and some blockade. I have to go really fast, Jeffrey. So this is already discussed, 3-phase VR training. We use kind of like a scaffolding approach. Some of the e-learning and examples, so about dry ice, safety procedures again is pretty much involved. It's about cleaning the generator and different steps for that. A lot of equipment is used. They have to hoist that up onto the turbine. Yeah, we give them like small blocks, 10 minutes. So some of the examples of what the e-learning consists of. When you look at this three-stage or three-phase training, this is where kind of scaffolding is applied. You start out with a tutorial with a lot of support. So here you see you get all kinds of what we call tooltips, additional information, and of course there's a voiceover that talks you through. We created this character called John Enercon. He's a really cool guy, super experienced. Your digital trainer that helps you through this. You take away some of that in free practice. You still have the task list, and in the assessment, basically that's where in a team of 2 persons, because you always work in duos in this industry, you do these actual tasks, do the cleaning. We gamified some of the cleaning experience, because if you do it wrong, you see a dollar amount going of how much damage you did. So it's kind of like a nod towards how that works. We always, in these kind of projects, do a lot of testing, getting feedback from target audience. So these are a bunch of the guys that do this type of work, and then training in one of their training facilities where you have multiple things. So service hoists, the elevators, all kinds of safety and climbing exercises are done here based on the industry standards that are required. Yeah, and then that results in something like this. I think you just need to press play. Not sure if we have audio on this one.
No, so there's a menu. Users can just select whichever stage they were at. You can also remember if you do it in the same day. This is the environment you see. And you pick up the Porto communication device, just as they use in real life. It's the same model. Try to stay as close to reality as possible. What is different here, that this is a very light environment. It's an open exercise environment. This is for the tutorial phase. Later on, the screenshots you saw a few slides before, you're actually in a sort of a dome, which is darker. It's still lighter than it is in real life because there's no actual light. Just to get them used to the skill and the situation they will be working in. It's less dangerous in VR, but it still gets them into the right mindset.
Yeah, some of it is equipment training, learning how to utilize the equipment, which is now done in a very dry training environment. Yeah, and our insights is that the industry needs a lot of support. We believe that game-based learning makes learning more relevant and more accessible, especially with younger age group workers, technical workers. They find it super obvious, but these industries are quite conservative. A lot of quite aged management and safety related decision makers, and they are from a very traditional learning experience, so classroom, on-the-job training, all these kind of things. We try to create the theoretical insights and utilize those into designs, but sometimes there's a distance between what is from the theory and research and applying that in this learning context. So we'd love to hear from you how we can make this better. We're not researchers. We have game developers, teachers, educational scientists, software engineers, all these kind of different skill sets in our organization. But we love to work more with academics in trying to make solutions that really impact, because there might be the assumption that there's a lot of great learning content in the industry and at these companies, but it's just very subpar, I think. There's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of opportunity to make it better.
Have you considered use of haptic gloves instead
Yeah.
of the
Sure, yeah. I can talk about all kinds of technologies, but a lot of technologies, HoloLens, haptic gloves, haptic suits, all of them are very much challenging in scale implementations.
There's an interesting company I saw at the Rotterdam conference. I'll see if I can get
Yeah.
it. They're working on literally gloves are just those.
Yeah. So, yeah,
Interfaces that
super interesting. I think to give you some background of what we've been doing over the years, transitioning from very complex systems, lots of unique technology or specific technology, we've done CPR trainers and all these kind of different things. The more we work on consumer hardware, phones, the Oculus Quest is a big solution. The reduction of complexity makes the barrier to entry and the scalability of these solutions so much greater. And this is a big challenge when you're looking at these kind of organizations like a HoloLens. Everybody talks about AR, and AR is going to be the future, but it's such a difficult device. It costs 3,000 to 5,000 euros. If you then implement it in an organization with about 100 of those, plus software development, plus support, nobody will stick out its neck to do that in the current situation, and it's quite fragile with 2 to 3 hours of battery usage. There's a lot of hardware challenges in this field. So I am a big believer in AR, VR. I would hope that the world can change, but in the short term, mobile phone is the most used device and the most accessible for a lot of these users, and some of the VR solutions are.
If you're going for really low tech solutions,
Yeah.
have you looked at the tabletop exercise and emergency response exercise training
Yeah.
methodologies? Because there might be some very useful data out there for you in that
Yeah.
area.
Yeah, we don't use a lot of tabletop solutions, but I'm interested to learn more. I always tend to find that we move towards digital solutions for scalability purposes, and who will lead a session. But there's a lot of insights, I think, from your field, from academia, from other examples that are unknown to us, that can help make these learning solutions better. Being part of this network session and learning more from you guys is very interesting. I look forward to learning more from your experience.
And talking about this, do you have your contact in our cabinet? I know you
Yeah.
have our email.
I have some contact
list.
information here, but I could share some material. I can link with you guys on LinkedIn. I'd love to do that, and whatever helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, go
Yeah, I
ahead.
think this is great because I quite like the fact that you are looking at theories and try to understand more about how people learn and what would work in different scenarios. And I quite like the awareness, the situation awareness sort of approach as well. But my question is sort of linking with the work that we are doing as well, because there are so many different serious games or games which have been created, or even VR, AR type thing.
Mm-hmm.
One of the questions that everyone is asking is that yes, we can understand that we can measure the effectiveness from the pre and post, but not a lot of people who are actually working on what is actually happening within that particular environment. And I think I applaud the use of micro-learning resources,
Mhm.
which will help us to understand more about which part of the learning resources would help what types of learning or what types of outcome that we are expecting from the environment. So my question is like when you design for example, the safety one, when you design the different resources and you've got the app and you've got the VR as well, did you map it against the learning process or the mechanics of learning? For instance, the diagram that you showed in terms of projection, comprehension type thing, did you map against those to ensure that you are addressing the theory that you started with to inform the resources that you created?
I think the best answer is, the most honest answer is we tried.
Yeah.
But sometimes that is challenging to translate a model, which is a model that we created ourselves, into learning material. But we try to do that as much as possible. The challenge is that learning material is best not attached to a fixed structure, because everyone everyone would love to learn in their own way.
Yeah.
So we give them the freedom to go through different solutions in different ways. We created self-assessment type of learning formats that allow us to steer a little bit more towards where the deficiencies are. And we see that AI and personal adaptive learning solutions or components would help in optimizing that learning process.
But I presume the principal learning process, for example, you understand something, you comprehend it, you project it for instance.
There is a structure in
those
that.
cycles are within some of the resources that you put. For example, the VR one is a clear one in terms of you're there, you're viewing something that's happening, and then you project your own understanding of what can I do type thing, and linking to the three things you mentioned, which are like in terms of self-understanding, and then you'll be able to nudge your colleagues into being
everything
compliant.
has a link to
Exactly.
one of those subjects. Or
Exactly.
One of those, but,
Exactly. So having like a clear, it doesn't have to be fixed and having a clear of saying that, oh, when someone does this, then I assume, I hypothesize that they would achieve this and this would actually impact this. So that would help us to be able to, because I'm looking at it from a researcher point of view, how am I going to evaluate the effectiveness of the use of this? So by having that mapping would help us to understand more about, okay, now I can measure and track what's happening across the different resources, no matter how they access them. And then you will be able to understand more about how would someone learn from point A to point whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I think it's great. Yeah.
you're touching on a very good point. Measuring the effectiveness, because we know which microlearning activity of a few minutes is aimed at situational awareness, which one is aimed at pro-social behavior, all those different.
Fantastic.
There's a learning structure, and you can't do this without all the dependencies are there. There's a structure and a flow that already buys with personalized learning tracks. Because then, how much are you willing to give up in between if someone already knows something? That's the self-assessments. But measuring which is this part actually effective in reaching higher situational awareness?
Yes.
That's very much a struggle. And it's also the part where there's less time for that, or we can allot less time to that part. Because it's simply harder, and we made it hard for ourselves. That's part of the issue. But we would love insights or just
That is a good
short
challenge,
sparring session on getting how could we start doing that and measuring.
I think in the structure of material, like having a starting screen and explaining what the exercise is about or for, and then going in the structure of what we call an activity, so one of these specific ones for confined spaces, allows you to understand better why you're learning this and why it's relevant. But there's always a balance between what information can you provide and how deep can you go into specific subject matter. We have different learner analytics components in it of usage on module level, so activity level, and different elements that we can see in the app. But in the future, we'd love to see from the data of usage at scale, let's say this one is not utilized as much and this one is, and how can we optimize for those kind of things. But it's highly dependent on what a client wants and how they perceive usage. Much more the practical sense of implementing it in the organization and getting users to spend time on it or reserve time or as an organization for that is a challenge than the micro level of measurement that you're suggesting. Because I know that it's possible, but there's bigger challenges for us to tackle to get usage up to the desired levels.
Just one last thing on that. I think it'll be quite interesting because everyone, as you said, would access the different resources differently, right? So you've got all that data on how, say, 50 employees are accessing this. So you have that 50 sets of data, and you will see which route is more effective than another, which resources are not being used. So that would help in a way inform the employers in terms of what is the best route for the employees to use this, maybe during lunchtime.
If you measure that before and after, yes. but you have to take into consideration that their previous knowledge and what they've already brought with them is also part of that. So it is a complex field. We believe that with scale, we can achieve much more insights and then optimize the tool before that. And this is our transition to more product-based approach than project-based approach. Because at scale, then we can optimize and improve on it.
It is exciting, is what I think.
Thanks.
It's quite interesting what you've said in terms of measuring before and after. But what about measuring what it is happening during the actual activity itself? I mean, you've got the learning analytics component.
I understand all these questions. I think, Rich, this is what I talked about a little bit. I understand it from a research perspective. The customers don't give a shit, guys. They don't care. They don't want to pay for that. It's not solving their problem. What they need, and excuse my French, what they need is just getting the guys to spend more time on this product.
Right.
And there's all kinds of neat things that we can do with data and research. They just don't care, and they're not paying for it either. So only at scale does it allow us to spend time on that and optimize, because I do believe that there is gold there to optimize, but it's so hard because customers really don't care about any of that.
Yeah.
And that's a real struggle, internal struggle, like wanting to make something based on all these
I
things.
get that. It is totally fine, but in terms of, I mean, if you want to, I suppose that increase the commercialization and eventually having more money out of it, then obviously you need to just measure a bit what they do and what they like and what they don't like, so then you can focus on specific design elements that it's going to increase this productivity that you're mentioning.
Yeah.
So I suppose there is some sort of a nexus between doing research for increasing this productivity and also increasing the income that you can have.
Yeah, the effectiveness.
Exactly.
I think it's from the assumption that the organization is desiring to understand what is the most effective. Somewhat in compliance is, I need my people to have seen this in order for me to be compliant, in order for me to get a certain insurance rate and rating on how projects are scored in a tender or something like that.
Yeah.
And that kind of struggle is my internal battle, because I want to do the best in a scientific manner, but the market doesn't really care.
In this case, is it possible to collaborate with external researchers who have maybe more experience and time with research? Or
It's
confidential?
very much so. Now we're open to all kinds of collaboration. It's basically a cost and time thing. These are commercial activities, so we cannot research for the sake of research.
I'm sure
we'd love to collaborate.
I'm sure there is a research funding somewhere that is,
Which we can get.
But we can include,
One of the things that you mentioned was how much information you give before they go into the exercise. From a pure game design perspective, this is actually potentially hazardous. There's a principle out there called overpriming the player. And if you overprime the player, they don't have the experience of the wonder, they don't have the experience of questioning. So really, in the game environment, one of the things that I see with a lot of students who I'm teaching to design serious games to start with, and I've seen it in all of the serious games, 90% of the serious games out there, including the one that was displayed at Telegram, they have a habit of info dumping at the very start of the game. And I'm going to tell you from personal experience, if I get an info dump, I am aiming through it faster than you can believe.
This is what we're going to learn. And we do it again.
Bam, 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 bam.
Yeah.
If you want to get the engagement up, you have to create a little bit more confusion and a little bit more chaos, because that's going to create the curiosity which you need to actually engage with the client more. So be careful about potentially overpriming. This is also it's a thing that comes out of the difference between human-computer interaction and game design. In human-computer interaction, you're attempting to make the system as simple, clear, and intuitive as possible. In game design, that's a poison pill. You have to have it intuitive enough that the person can engage, but complex enough that the person is like,
what would happen if I did this?
Right.
The
I
conflict,
think,
yeah. Is a
I think
conflict.
the third component is instructional design, so
Yeah.
providing the information, because we can gamify it only to a certain extent.
Yeah,
In some of
but,
these industries, even like mentioning the game element is not really
But the-
exciting for them.
But the thing about that is that even from the instructional design perspective, are you going from instructional design where you're following the traditionalist presentation, practice, production model, or are you going for a more task-based learning model which can flip that into the switch? You can make the argument towards your clients that it's been shown that this is a hell of a lot more effective. The citations for that would be the U.S. military the creation of the first flight simulator in 1936, all the way through. So there's grounding there for it.
Yeah, we try to, but I think there's a lot of room for improvement, so we'd love to speak further and get some input from you guys.
Sorry to interrupt, I know the time is very limited, but we need to leave some time for our next presentation.